All right, welcome back to Anatomy and Physiology here at Arizona Western College. And today we're talking about bone growth, specifically after birth here. And really, during the age of infancy and youth, our bones grow lengthwise entirely by interstitial growth, meaning inside of the bone. And this occurs at the epiphyseal plate. We go to a slide, actually, we'll kind of talk about the epiphyseal plate first. So it occurs at the epiphyseal plate, and what you'll see is that longitudinal bone growth actually mimics the events of endochondral ossification, and it depends on the presence of the epiphyseal cartilage. So that's actually hyaline cartilage, and this hyaline cartilage is stacked almost like coins when you see it in terms of its layers. And so bone grows from the epiphyseal region. So bone growth usually occurs at the epiphyseal region. And then as we get down towards the diaphysis, what you'll see is that there's three or four zones of growth that occur, which the cells of the chondrocytes go through. And so the first is what you'll see here, the resting zone or the reserve zone. And really, that's where we have just the matrix production and just non mitotically active cells located there. And these cells are chondrocytes because what's growing here is hyaline cartilage, which will then be filled in by bone. And in the proliferative zone is actually where we see these first mitotically active cells. These are chondrocytes that are stacked really close together. They'll continue to divide mitotically, growing upwards, right? Upwards towards the epiphyseal region. And as they continue to grow upwards in the proliferation zone, what we find is the zone of maturation and hypertrophy. So, underneath the zone of maturation and hypertrophy, the older chondrocytes in the stack, which are closer to the diaphysis, tend to hypertrophy or get bigger. They tend to enlarge, and their lacuna, their outside covering, will erode, and it leaves some very large interconnecting spaces. There, after the zone of maturation, comes the keep clicking on the wrong thing, comes the calcified matrix. So that matrix then becomes calcified, the cartilage cells die, and the matrix begins to deteriorate, and ultimately it becomes new bone, again through the zone of ossification. So there's four zones here. Bones grow through the epiphyseal plate, and they grow from the long ends, right? The long ends grow outward as these bones grow, and you can see that they're kind of stacked of four high. These cells, these different groups of cells are stacked four high, and it's really that they start from this proliferative zone where they continue to grow upward, ultimately reaching their maturity and dying at the zone of calcification. And so, which one I'm asked today. Ultimately, what we see is that the epiphyseal plate, or the growth plate as it might be called, eventually becomes the epiphyseal line, which will close. And as it matures, the epiphyseal plate progresses to the epiphyseal line. Bones also widen while they lengthen, and also they widen as we grow older. So bones will continue to be dynamic and remodeling. So in the cases of remodeling, uh, this is where our bones continue to grow wider. Again, maintaining that hollow, light shell. So what happens is you have two zones here. You have You have the region where bone is going to grow on the endosteum, so it's going to grow the medullary cavity wider. And then there's cells underneath the periosteum, which grow the bone itself wider. So in the adult skeleton, bone deposition and resorption occur both at the surface of the periosteum and at the surface of the endosteum. Together, the two processes can constitute bone remodeling. So, in healthy young adult bones, the total mass remains constant and indicates that the rate of bone deposition and resorption is equal. And so, again, what we're having is a regular remodeling. And so, our bones, let's see if I can draw this maybe. But what happens is that at the periosteum, the bone is going to grow wider. So, I get the pen there, and it's going to grow wider this way. It's going to grow wider out this way. But also to allow for bones to grow and maintain their lightness. The medullary cavity is also going to grow. So you've got osteoclast and osteoblast underneath the medullary cavity, as well as underneath the periosteum, and the bone is going to grow oppositionally or grow wider. And so, really, those are the two ways that bones grow. So, both longitudinal bone growth, in which we see at the epiphyseal plate, there's a resting zone, often referred to as a reserve zone. That's where we have resting chondrocytes and cells. The matrix is helped to be produced there. The mitotically active chondrocytes or cartilage cells are located in the proliferative zone. The zone of maturation and hypertrophy is where they start to become larger. They accumulate glycogen, alkaline phosphate, and the matrix begins to calcify. Ultimately, those cells die by the zone of calcified matrix, because now that matrix becomes calcified. The new zone will also will fill in with bone. And so that's how our bones grow and develop while we're outside of the womb. Stay tuned. We'll talk about what happens when we undergo fractures and how we heal.